On the morning of December 26, 1776, George Washington and a ragtag army, 2,000 strong, made a daring raid across the Delaware River. For over 4 months, the Americans had suffered defeat after defeat during the campaign for New York. Now, Washington is desperate for a victory, something to light the spark of hope for the American cause. 249 years later, we are fighting the battle again, this time on the tabletop, right here on the Neat History Channel. Hello and welcome to this special Christmas episode here on the Neat History Channel. I'm Derek Reisner, and as you can see right here, we have a board set for the Battle of Trenton. And you might also notice that we have a special guest, Fred White.
Hi.
And you might notice that Fred looks kind of similar to me a little bit. Is there a reason for that? Do you know?
I'm his grandfather.
Yeah, this is my grandfather. So yes, my grandfather has graciously given his time to be my opponent. So first of all, the rules. What rules are we using? Well, we're going to be using Live Free or Die. And this is a rule set that's been put out by Little Wars TV. If you know anything about wargaming, you've probably heard of them. A regiment is the basic tactical maneuver element, with a base of infantry or cavalry representing about 50 men. Now, they also publish a scenario book that goes with the rules that's called Victory or Death. It comes with an extra 10 scenarios. One of them is for the Battle of Trenton, and that one actually has a few special rules that we're going to be using for this battle to see how things could have happened. Even in the actual Battle of Trenton, not everything went according to plan for George Washington. Initially, he had devised a 3-pronged attack across the Delaware River, but a nor'easter foiled those plans, forcing 2 of the columns to turn back. When the main army did arrive at Trenton, it was already daybreak, well behind schedule, and Washington feared his plans were discovered. Fortunately, fate and providence seemed to be on the American side. The Hessian forces had been harassed by American militia for several weeks, and even though Washington's men engaged the Hessian pickets outside of town, Colonel Rall was completely unaware of the magnitude of the assault until it was too late. In the short conflict that followed, nearly 2/3 of the 1,500-man Hessian garrison were killed, wounded, or captured, against only 5 American wounded and another 2 who died of exposure due to the weather. While the strategic importance of the battle is debatable, the victory did serve its purpose of boosting the morale of the American cause. But in our battle today, the outcome could be quite different. Here's a quick look at the order of battle for both the Americans and the Hessians. Some of these units are highlighted as they may not actually participate in this battle. Pop up, you are going to be the Hessians, I'm going to be the colonial Americans. Your commander is Colonel Rall, and my commander, of course, is George Washington. I actually got a couple of sub-commanders being Green and Sullivan. You also have the possibility of another commander showing up, a British guy named Mawhood. So this battle that we're fighting starts at 7 a.m. and it lasts to 11 a.m. Now, game turns can be about half an hour to 20 minutes. And for this particular game, each game turn is half an hour. It's 8 turns. At the most 8 turns. There's actually a possibility of being slightly shorter. In order for the American player to secure victory, they need to achieve 3 objectives. First, capture and control the crossroads here, marked with the letter W. Second, capture and control Rall's headquarters, which is this building on the edge of town. Third, the Americans must inflict more casualties on the Hessians than they receive on themselves. If any of these objectives are not fulfilled, then the battle is considered a Hessian victory. Now we come to the what-if part of the scenario. First, we must each choose from 2 options and then roll twice on our random events charts. Each option comes with its own risks and rewards. Fred, as the Hessian player, has these 2 options. Either construct an earthwork, or ignore this precaution and double the patrols outside of town. Fred chooses the cowardly option and digs in. This allows him to place an earthwork and deploy his grenadiers and 1 cannon behind it. However, if he had decided to deploy extra patrols instead, that would have forced the American player to roll an extra time on their random events chart. And since the Americans have more bad outcomes than good, that could have made things a whole lot worse for me. So, Pop-Up, you made the decision as the Hessians to actually opt for building these fortifications. Can you talk about why you decided to make that choice?
Well, I was trying to protect the commander's headquarters, and I figured that I would put it up right near where he was quartered.
I, as the American player, also have two options. Either press on towards Trenton with all haste, or let the rest of the army catch up. I decided to commence with the assault immediately. This means I get the full 8 turns to fight the battle, but moving with such haste may cost me some needed reinforcements. If I had chosen to wait, that would have held me back another extra 2 turns, which meant I would have only had 6 turns. And we've done this battle a few times together, and one thing I know is time is not on the American side. On his random event rolls, Fred did not get any new reinforcements. But Colonel Rahl did receive word that Washington's attack was incoming and was able to deploy his entire command immediately. If you hadn't rolled that, Kniphausen and Lossberg's regiment, they would have had to have started in the barracks, and then they would have come out a few turns later. So did that affect your thinking in terms of what you were going to be doing in the battle?
No, I don't think so. I was going to use a defensive strategy to protect the town no matter what.
But as it turned out, without them, you would have had nothing on your left flank there.
True.
Now it was my turn. My first roll delayed one of my brigades, led by General Sullivan, indefinitely. At the beginning of each turn, I will have to roll a d6 dice. Only on a roll of a 6 will his column arrive. Sullivan's brigade actually has 2 continental regiments. That's kind of what really hurts. Fortunately, my second roll allowed for Sergeant's brigade to make an appearance in the battle. He'll arrive here at point V on turn 5. I'm grateful for the reinforcements. However, I have my doubts about their effectiveness, as their late arrival and distance from the main fight might limit their participation. You may have noticed that we are using paper miniatures for this wargame. This was something I originally saw as a quick and simple way to break into the hobby. However, over time, I've developed an appreciation for these snip and glue figures. They have the advantage of being cheaper than plastic or metal figures, quicker to make, and easily adaptable to different scales. For instance, these miniatures from the American Revolutionary War are intended for 28mm scale. However, I shrunk them down to 18mm scale to better fit with the Live Free or Die rule set. The Peters Paperboy website has many downloadable PDFs from ancient times all the way up to World War II, and the content is still expanding. And the battle mat we're using is from Cigar Box Battle Mats. They have hundreds of printed fleece battle mats covering a variety of different engagements. This one is specifically designed for the Battle of Trenton, found in the Victory or Death scenario book. This is a good time to say that I have no affiliation with any of the previously mentioned vendors. I will provide links in the description in case you are interested, but these are simply provided for your convenience. So without further ado, let's get into the battle. My plan was simple. Sterling's brigade, led by General Greene, will attempt to hold down Fred's grenadiers in the earthworks. Live Free or Die does give first-class units like the Hessian Grenadiers bonuses for morale checks and melee combat, so I didn't expect to be able to dislodge them. However, I was hoping to distract them while Washington led my main assault with Fermoy's and Mercer's brigades on the right flank. The first 3 turns, nothing really happens. Mostly movement. I'm taking some shots, you're taking some shots. So I shoot at him with my skirmishing rifle units, he shoots at me with his cannon. We inflict some DMZ damage, but no one really suffers any casualties. Whenever damage is inflicted on a unit, it is represented by these red tokens, which are called DMZs. They can represent anything that diminishes the fighting effectiveness of a unit. When a unit receives 5 DMZs, 1 base is immediately removed as a casualty. Then that unit must take a morale test. If the unit passes the test, they can stay in the fight. But if the unit fails, it will make a hasty retreat. And of course, in those first 3 rounds, I roll for Sullivan's brigade, and each time I don't roll a 6, so Sullivan is on Sullivan's travels, apparently.
Am I laughing?
And don't know where he is. Hopefully he shows up at some point. Sullivan may be absent, but at the start of turn 3, Stevens' brigade with his Virginia regiment arrives. For the moment, I keep them in the rear until they are needed. All this time, Fred has been content to do nothing. With all his units deployed before the battle commenced, he can sit back and let the battle come to him.
So in those first 3 rounds, were you ever thinking about making any moves, or are you just like, yeah, I'll just...
No, I was in a good position to block you from getting to the commander's house, and I had the grenadiers behind a barricade and the field piece. And on the sides, I had 2 regiments to block anyone wanting to come into the town from the left. The only thing was on the right, and there was no one there. So I didn't have to be concerned about anybody outflanking me on the right.
But Fred seems to be unaware that Sargent's brigade had made the crossing and would be making on that exposed right flank in just a few turns. As turn 4 begins, I roll for Sullivan again. And again, he has failed to make an appearance.
Don't talk nonsense. I left a note saying I was taking the car. Or did I?
Shooting now starts to get hot. I take a bit of damage, you take a bit of damage, but we're only inflicting DMZs at this point. A lot of red tokens on the board, but still no casualties, which is fine with me at this point. Remember, that's part of my objectives. I need to inflict more casualties on him than him on me, so far, so good.
Speaking of objectives, I suddenly realized that I had made no effort to capture the road exit at Point W. So I decided to split off one of the regiments from Stevens' brigade to take the objective. It's at this point that both Fred and I decide to attach our leaders to regiments. Units with officers attached get a number of bonus dice based on the leader's star rating. This can boost the effectiveness of a unit for shooting, melee combat, and morale. But there's also a risk that the leader might be wounded or killed. At the halfway point, the battle still feels like it's barely begun. I roll again for Sullivan, and again, Sullivan fails to arrive.
Even if Sullivan shows up at this point, like, what is he going to do? Forget Sullivan's. However, someone who has answered the call is Sargent. Sargent's brigade arrives. But can they actually help? So they're actually coming from that flank, Pop, the flank that you weren't worried about. So when Sargent's brigade shows up there, what are you thinking in terms of that flank?
I had in reserve a small cavalry.
Very small, very small.
And I said, I'll go over there to see if I can head them off.
You were just kind of a blocking force at that point. Now, I still had a bit of a ways to march to start getting into the fight. I was hoping at least to get Pop to try to pull some troops here and do something so I could kind of punch through.
Now that both armies have multiple units within musket range, the casualties begin to mount. Sterling's brigade, led by General Greene, is hit hard, suffering 8 DMZ hits from the Hessian Grenadiers. To my center and right, Fermoy and Mercer are also reeling from deadly volleys leveled by the Hessian regulars. But I'm able to return fire and give almost as good as I got. All told, the Americans lose 4 bases to casualties and the Hessians suffer 3. But what is more disconcerting for us is that all 3 commanders on the field currently, General Greene in Washington for me and Colonel Rahl for Fred, were attached to units that suffered casualties.
So all of our commanders are at risk. And so we all roll. I rolled the at-risk table first. So first there's Greene here. Greene was attached to the 1st and 3rd Virginia. So now he's going to have to roll. If I roll anything but a 1, he's okay. But if I roll a 1, that means he's been hit. Not necessarily killed. That didn't count as a roll. Okay, so I got to roll anything but a 1. I rolled a 3. Okay, he's okay. Now we're going to roll for General Washington. Oh boy. A 6. Okay, he's okay. General Greene was fine. General Washington was fine. Then Public rolled for Colonel Rahl, that I kept on calling General Rahl, but he's really Colonel Rahl. And what happened? So remember, anything but a 1. Okay, that's not good. So he might not be dead, so you gotta roll again and see what happened to him. Okay, so roll again. General is dead. General Rahl has been killed. Oh dear. Sorry, no. Colonel Rahl. Colonel Rahl has been hit.
He is shot dead.
But it's appropriate because historically he did die during the battle. So, I guess it is sort of history repeating itself in that way.
Losing a leader in Live Free or Die is always tough, but the consequences for losing the commanding officer are dire. For 1 full turn, Fred will have no commanding officer on the field, which means he will have no command points for issuing orders. And once a new commander is appointed, they will be given half the number of command points as the previous leader. This will severely limit his ability to order troop movements. If Fred was on the offense, such a penalty would certainly crush any hopes of victory. However, as the defending player with all his troops positioned in a tight formation, he still has a fighting chance of pulling out the victory.
When Colonel Rahl was shot and you had to get a new commander, what were you thinking? Were you worried at all, or what was...
No, I wasn't too concerned. Had the grenadiers and they were behind the earthwork. They'd just be concerned about what's in front of them, and they seem to be able to take care of that with no problem.
As turn 6 begins, the Hessians are still technically winning. The Americans have yet to claim the crossroads or capture Rahl's headquarters, and with the casualty count 4-3 against the Americans, the pressure is still squarely on my shoulders to make something happen.
So, in the middle of all this, I sent the 1st Pennsylvania to charge at Rahl's headquarters. There was a skirmish unit in front of them, these Jagers. They're well trained, but they're in skirmish formation, and they're not really meant to deal with units in melee combat. So I charge, and I win. And now, all of a sudden, I can see Rahl's headquarters unprotected.
At the beginning of turn 7, the casualties are beginning to mount on both sides. I managed to claim Rahl's headquarters, and I'm inches away from claiming the 2nd objective. But we also have the arrival of a new Hessian commander.
So, important. Colonel Rahl's replacement has shown up. Here you go. I don't know if you want to give him a name. Doesn't have to have a name. Just for fun.
Z.
Z? So he's just Commander Z?
Yeah.
Does he have a rank?
Colonel. He's taking
Colonel
off.
Z. So Colonel Z is taking over command of the Hessian forces. Now you may notice it's the same model because I only got one Hessian commander model. Why Colonel Z? Is he asleep? Is that why? Or
Oh, it's easy to remember.
it's easy to remember. Okay. Now a pattern emerges because I roll for Sullivan again, and Sullivan doesn't show up. I move one of Stephen's regiments from his brigade, and they continue to move towards the crossroads here. And Sergeant continues to march closer. And this is the point where I decide to order an all-out assault. I take General Washington. He's already been attached to the 2nd Maryland, and there's also the 20th Connecticut. So the 2nd Maryland, the 20th Connecticut, they go charging in. I believe it's to Lossberg's regiment. I know at this point that I have an advantage in this attack. I'm gonna have a roll, I think it was 6-2. I had 6 dice, you had 2 dice. So I'm thinking, okay, so this is it. I'm thinking, okay, this is when the Continentals win. So I'm attacking, I'm gonna roll first, and then you're gonna roll, okay? So let's roll. Okay, I got 1 success. You're gonna roll your 2 dice. How many successes you get? You got 2 successes. Oh, so you actually win. So, driven back, I suffer 2 DMC and 1 casualty, retreat a full move, or behind nearest friendly unit. Okay, that did not go the way I wanted. And somehow, the Hessians win 2-1.
Oh, I just glad it's just a game.
That's what I should be saying. And I think it's at that point that I really started to feel like, oh no, this isn't going to end well.
On the final turn of the game, I'm able to claim the 2nd objective at the crossroads. But with the Americans still behind 8-7 on the casualty count, I will need a good round of combat to come away with a victory.
Sullivan doesn't show up, who cares? Stephen finally takes objective W, great, 2 out of 3, but I need to bat 1,000. And then, of course, I start shooting, and the Americans, they whiff. 8 dice from the 1st New York on the 16th Dragoons. And that's gonna be 1 hit. All that powder and only 1 hit. Okay, these guys on them, so that's gonna be, got 13 dice there, and I got no hits. That, you gotta be kidding me. I'm trying to get 1 more hit, because if I can inflict 1 more D and Z on them, you'll have another casualty, which is what I need to do right now, is inflict casualties on you. So unless I can somehow have like 5 hits. I had 4. I think I'm like 1 away a few times from inflicting a casualty,
Yeah,
and I
they-
don't. And it's getting very frustrating. I finally inflict 1 somewhere on one of those regiments over there, but then you shoot back at me, I lose 2 more. But before all that, I did make the decision to charge the German regiment. I don't know how they were feeling about fighting, you know, their cousins. But anyways, I told them to charge in to the artillery that was there. And I think I underestimated how much protection that artillery, that single artillery piece, got from the terrain it was set up in. I didn't realize it was going to work out this way, but because of the terrain you're defending and because you're a higher class, you're actually going to roll more dice than me. You know what? You never know when we roll. Okay, Pop, you roll. And you get 1 success. Okay, so I just need to have at least 1 to tie you and 2 to beat you. So let's see if I can do that. I do not. So that means I lose. In the round that I needed to inflict 2 more casualties on you than me, I end up losing 2 more than you. It's 3-1.
As the battle closes, the Americans come up just short of victory. The Americans lose 11 bases, or 550 casualties, compared to the Hessians' 8 bases, or 400 casualties.
General Washington loses. He loses the Battle of Trenton, which historically that would have had major implications.
Too bad your troops coming in from the right wouldn't move fast enough. They could have either got into the town or surrounded the grenadiers if the game lasted longer.
To be fair, I think the scenario is supposed to be very hard for the Americans. We've done this, I think, at least 3 times. The Americans have never won, and it's because you really need everything to go in your favor, which did happen historically. Almost everything went right. Obviously, that didn't happen to me today. These scenarios are probably meant more for historical accuracy than game balance. So that's something to always keep in mind.
Well, no, it's just that if I was the opposing player, I would probably want 2 more turns, or else I could move my troops a little faster than what they allow you to.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, technically, I did achieve 2 of 3 objectives. The only objective I did not achieve was inflicting more casualties on you. And that was only because the 2nd Maryland and the 20th Connecticut whiffed on their roll that they should have won. I mean, if that had gone my way, if I inflicted 2 or 3 casualties and you only 1, then you would have gotten driven back. You would have lost more than me. And
Would you have
then I could have
6 dice and I had 2? And
yeah,
I won.
I guess I'm kind of complaining that things felt unfair for the Americans, but at the same time, the reality is, if it wasn't for that one roll that should have gone in my favor and didn't, I probably would have won the battle. I think either way, even if I won, it wouldn't have been the victory that George Washington had. Because again, he hardly lost any men. Whereas in this, I was still losing like a few hundred men. So I had a fun time, Pop. Did you have a fun time?
Oh, definitely.
All right, and I hope you out there had a fun time watching this. I know this is not the typical content we put together, but if you did like it, please let me know in the comments, because this took a lot of work to put together, especially because I had to both fight the battle and run a few cameras at the same time. With that, I think we can let everyone go and just say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.